Hello, kids. Welcome in. It's another edition of the Matt Murphy Show on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Conveniently enough, my name is Matt Murphy, and I'll host proceedings until 3 o'clock today, or they kick me off the radio, whichever comes first. It's our episode 551. If you want to see my ridiculous Masters hat, now's your opportunity. And you better do it quickly because I'm taking it off very soon. It is on Super Talk TV as we speak. More on that in just a moment. We've lots to do this Thursday, April 11th, 2024. For those of you interested, it is the first day of the Masters. Most of you are not interested, and I promise you we will have little to no Masters talk, unless you want it. I could give you all the Masters trivia that you want. I could tell you the dark and seedy side of Augusta National if you want. I could tell you the story. Hey, Bell K behind the glass, making sure that everything that comes out of our speaker sounds as good as humanly. I could tell you the story about how a kid got shot by a security guard on the 12th hole of Augusta National, and everything got covered up because it was Augusta National. I can tell you that story.
What year was this?
1977, 78, something like that.
I've never heard about that. They did a good job of covering it up.
It was the son of a caddy who broke, he and a couple of his friends broke in to fish in Rays Creek and the pond there near the 12th hole. And they were caught by security, and one of the security guards got nervous because the kid had a fishing pole. He swung the fishing pole around, shot him, killed him, covered it up. Never talked about in Augusta, Georgia. Nobody ever investigated.
What the hell?
They paid the caddy. They paid the family of the caddy off. And
how many millions was that?
It was probably a lot of money. I mean, I could tell you these stories till the cows come home, but I won't. That's a lot of hit. I mean, but there's a lot of good history, too.
You're right. Let's talk about Joe Biden instead.
Yeah, that's what we should do. Well, let's talk about Joe Biden and the fact that there's not inflation. And if you think that there's inflation, you're being gaslit by the Republicans and people like Matt Murphy on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. So more coming up on that in just a couple of minutes. I mentioned it's Thursday, April 11th. 2024. It's our episode 551 of the proceedings today. Happy to be with you. Thank you for your time. Whether you give us an hour during your lunchtime hour, I'm so appreciative of that. We call it the libertarian lunch, or the full 3 hours, or all day long from Dan Mandis, Chris Hand, Matt Murphy, Brian Wilson, right after us from 3 until 7. We thank you, thank you, thank you. It is my final day of the week. I'm out tomorrow. Cameron Smith in for me. And I know that's 2 Fridays in a row. Last Friday I was in for Brian Wilson. I was not technically off, so one day out this week, and we'll be back to it on Monday. Lots to get into before we call it a day and call it a week for me. Obviously, there's some goings-on in the General Assembly, and I'm going to tell you some of the skinny that I've heard about this morning. We'll do that in just a little bit. We'll tell you the update on guns and teachers, or the ability for teachers, faculty, and staff to, if they so desire and if they're trained, keep and carry firearms to try to protect our children. That's on the docket for today. OJ Simpson is dead, and I don't feel so good myself. We'll discuss that today, and take your telephone calls. And we're packing in 2 days into one, so we've got Sapicki at 1:30 today, Jay StClair from 1 until 1:30 as he joins us for Friday on Thursday, and then Friday Mac Attack on Thursday in the 2 o'clock hour. So we're cramming.
What are we drafting?
I don't know. It's Friday Mac Attack. It's not Friday Murph Attack. Hey, beat on the window back there. Beat on the glass back there and get his attention. By the way,
what are we drafting?
There was a time when I was impressed with he's finishing up his let's not, it's his lunchtime. Let's not disrupt him.
No, yeah, you make me work all day. I mean, yeah, fine.
Well, okay, let me ask you a question. What are we drafting?
What are we drafting?
Well, Hand had a good idea.
So you don't know, but you're complaining about working.
Mm-hmm. Hand had a good idea, did he?
We could draft the drafts.
Draft? I don't think we've done enough drafts to draft the draft.
Yeah, it would be right on the edge.
We could draft beer.
I mean, we could draft
beer.
I was thinking we could draft our favorite, the greatest goats.
I was thinking about that too, something sportsy.
Yeah.
I literally had that idea. I almost made a list of goats for us to draft from, because I would want it to be a list of 25 goats.
Do alpacas count?
That we're drafting from. Okay.
Is that a goat?
See, and this is
where we go wrong.
By the way, this is exactly why I thought this morning, as I was thinking about possibly what you would draft, I thought, well, the Masters is on. We could do like golf goats.
Yeah, golf goats.
We could do just general goats. And
golf
I thought
moments.
But, the problem is him. He's the problem. But you know what? He's always the problem.
Yeah, it's true.
He's never not the problem.
What am I, Taylor Swift over here?
You're trouble. Is that a Taylor Swift song? Is that a Taylor Swift song?
Yes.
It's a Travis Tritt song, not a Taylor Swift song. Anyway.
Both.
Well, Mac Morey will let us know when the time is appropriate.
Thank you.
Which will be 5 minutes before we start.
And you know what? I've worn a little something of Masters gear, Augusta National gear, every day this week.
You have.
And there was a time when I was impressed with you doing the Kansas. I could go anher week and a half, I think, with Augusta National.
Wow.
Stuff. I think I could.
I should have worn my Masters hat today.
Well, why
I'd wear a
didn't you?
Chiefs hat. I got my Chiefs hat.
Are you done with the hats? Are you? You think you can get to May, right?
Going for 50. That's my main goal right now.
Where are you?
41.
Oh yeah, you.
Yeah,
got
so 9 more days. That's what I'm saying. Yeah,
you got that.
You're
got that in the bag.
right, Matt. This has become pathetic.
It really is, isn't it? I mean, he has that means for those who are just joining us and don't know what we're talking about, Mac Morey has worn a piece of Kansas City Chief paraphernalia or clothing every day since they've won the Super Bowl, which was in February. Woo! That means that he has at least 50 separate items of Chief gear. And I don't feel bad for him. I feel bad for Hannah, who has to put up with it. But if she's cool with it, all good.
I mean, she's geared up. She's got gear.
I mean, this is coming. I mean, look at this is coming from this guy.
Yeah, he's got a Masters hat.
Yeah, fair point.
Yes.
This guy. My grandfather had a name for these hats, and I can't tell you
Gilligan?
what. No, he called them something different. I can't.
I'm assuming it's a potty word, obviously.
No, I can't go anywhere near the story on the radio.
Dang it.
I can't go anywhere near the story on the radio.
That's how you know it's good, though.
I can tell you the story off the radio.
You're going to have to post it to your socials.
I bought a hat like this. This is like a bucket, one of your standard bucket hats with the brim all the way around. The one that I bought was not a Masters version. I bought a hat like this when I was about 16 years old. It was like all different colors. It was plaid. I thought I was cool. It was wild. It was all bucket.
Oh, yeah. Styling.
I'm cool. And I walked in. I'm 16 years old. I see my grandfather, and he says, "Oh, I see you bought yourself a bleep hat." And I can't tell you what the bleep was.
Dang it.
And I said, Why do you call it that?
Wait. I haven't heard that.
Wait, what? And he goes, "Oh, that's what we used to call them when I was a kid because every time we called them that because every time we saw one of them, there was a bleep right beneath it." And you can figure out for yourself what the bleep is. I'm not going. I'll tell you what. You follow me on social media. You follow me on the X Machine at Matt Murphy Show, and we'll DM, and I'll tell you what the deal is. It's it's not for the faint of heart. Just put it that way. And just to suffice it to say that I never wore that hat around my grandfather anymore.
Yeah, just spirits crushed.
Yeah, I mean, I'm like, oh well, that's no good.
Thought it was looking cool.
I thought I was pretty good, and then justify. Oh, he's an old man. He doesn't know what he's talking about.
Exactly.
But every time you pull it out to wear it, you think what he called it.
That moment, exactly.
Anyway. All right, so more with Mac Morey later. Go have lunch or something. I don't know what you're doing.
All right, goodbye. Go
Just get out of here. Yeah, sure. And episode 551 can be found on a variety of platforms. Of course, 99.7 FM on the radio dial. You can also find us on any internet streaming platform of your choosing. And I encourage you to go over to Super Talk TV right now, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Twitch. If you want to see my ugly hat, you have about, 6 or 7 more minutes to see it because by the time we come back from the first break of the show, I will not have it on. Episode 551 is broadcast on television on the aforementioned YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Twitch. You will not see Bell K there. I ask him every day to join us. He refuses, which is why we call him Headless Bell. But he does title the episodes. And episode 551 on the television side is entitled
Matt Murphy's Friday Eve, or excuse me, I screwed it up. Matt Murphy's Friday is your Friday Eve, and there will be pain and suffering on Matt's part. Do you remember earlier in the week when somebody tweeted about Eclipse Eve, and you said that was the proper use of the word? And did you ever see my response to that?
I did not.
It's a picture of Pinhead.
Like
from
Pinhead,
from
the
Hellraiser.
Yeah.
And I decided that we were going to make Friday Eve special this week.
Mm-hmm. Oh, jeez.
It's Friday Eve all day long on the Matt Murphy Show.
So we'll have a few of those for you today before you head off on your weekend excursion because the Libertarian Lunch Special today is all you can eat buffets in respect for what you're doing this weekend.
I think about that quote every time I come to work and see you're still here.
Mm-hmm. I figure so.
That Hellraiser, pretty good horror flick for those into it.
Oh, yeah.
Great ending to that. Tore him right up. All right. Where was I now that Bell got me? Oh, was that the entire title? Did you give the title?
Yeah.
Okay, I missed it.
Okay,
Will you give it again?
Matt Murphy's Friday is your Friday Eve.
Okay.
There
yeah.
will be pain and suffering on Matt's part.
Okay, and then you did. Okay, yeah, I stopped listening. That's why I thought I missed it.
So it's like having a normal conversation with you.
Well, yeah. If I'm guilty of anything, I'm guilty of assuming that I know the end of your sentence, so I start moving on to the next one. 615-737-9986. If you'd like to be a part of the show, you're welcome. As always, we invite you telephone callers. Always good to turn a monologue into a dialogue. You can also reach us on the Members Nutrition Super Text line. As soon as I pull that up, it will be up and running as well. I've yet to do it. 615-737-9986. Let me give you a couple of updates on where I think we are on a few matters involving Tennessee politics. There are a couple of bills that are running through the Tennessee legislature, the General Assembly. And the two that have caught the most notice of the general population that are currently being debated both have to do with education. One is a piece of legislation that would give scholarships to qualifying parents, 20,000 of them at a max, at a cost of $140 million to the taxpaying citizens of the state of Tennessee. It would offer parents an opportunity to move their kids from failing or inadequate public schools into a private school setting, and it would supplement the cost of that, fully cover it, I guess, in some cases. I don't know of any schooling that would be only $7,000, but it would certainly supplement it for parents not able to afford it, giving them another tool in their educational toolbox. I am generally in favor of school choice. I'm generally in favor of this legislation. I understand that we can nitpick the legislation to death. We had a great vote on it a couple of days ago, and I think the final tally was like 39 to 27. I think that's right. 39.
That was exactly it, if I remember correctly.
39 in favor of the legislation and 27 opposed to the legislation. So there's a generous amount of debate on this. What we know, and I don't want to get too in the weeds on it, what we know is that there are different versions of this floating in the House and the Senate. And unless the House and the Senate can come together and figure out which bill or a compromise piece of legislation that they both will support and vote on, this thing is not happening in this session of the General Assembly. What I have been told by a couple of reliable sources, I'll get Scott Sapicki at 1:30 this afternoon to tell us as much as he possibly can. He is really the voice of the House version, especially on our show. We have him on once a week to talk general matters of the General Assembly, but this has been the most brought up topic over the last several months, really. But what I am told by those who are down there is that the Senate has offered a compromise proposal to the House. And I have multiple sources on this. And I'm not going to say who they are because I promised them that I wouldn't. Because nobody wants to screw up the deal. But I think you need to know where we are. That's what I'm here for, right? So while both chambers are dealing with other matters in floor session, I'm told that there was a compromise proposal offered from the Senate to the House. I am told that it includes several items that are very important to House of Representative members within the bill. The difference is, for those of you in Aniana or for those of you who haven't been paying attention, the differences are simple. The Senate bill is a very clean, it's a scholarship fund bill, and that's it. The House bill is a more comprehensive reform package that includes a couple of other items, to include the reforms on testing and other things that we've been talking about with Scott Sapicki. So the House compromise includes some of those measures, does not include all of them, but it is a true compromise piece of legislation in as much as it goes certain places and does certain things, but it doesn't do everything that the House did. So there is a general agreement. There is a feeling of forward momentum. And the sense that I get from individuals that I talked to last night and this morning is that there is a good belief that this will at very least get to the House and the Senate for a vote. Not different bills, obviously, the same bill for a vote. So we'll keep you up to date with that as far as we can and let you know what's going on there. Secondarily, the guns arming teachers or giving teachers the ability, faculty members, and other staff to arm themselves if they go through appropriate training. And I could go through the laundry list of things that they have to accomplish and do. We did that yesterday. That bill is moving forward, and I'm told that there's an expectation that it will move forward to the point where it potentially could get passed and go to the governor. That remains to be seen, but we had a lot of good conversation about that yesterday, and I'm excited about having good conversation again about that today.
If for some reason it doesn't pass this session, does that kill it, or can it just roll over to the next session?
No, they can bring it back up. They have a couple of measures. I'm not quite up on these, but I would say they have a couple of things that they can do. I think my terminology might be wrong here, but it's like tabling a bill, where if they bring it to the floor and they know that it's not coming to the Senate and they pass it in the House, they can like put it in a hopper. But I think they have to do this during a session, and a session is 2 years. So we'll ask Sapicki this, but I think the process is if the House passes something and the Senate doesn't get to it, they can just they don't have to pass it again. They can just let it sit.
So the original passage in the House counts, and it just waits on the Senate vote.
Right. Okay. And it can wait until next year, but I think it cannot extend beyond the quote-unquote session, which is a 2-year period of time. So that would indicate, but this being the last year of a session, that if anything dies this year, it has to go through the entire process again and go through the committees and whatnot. So there's all of that. And then there's this. Where were you on June 17th, 1994, Bell? Do you know that date off the top of your head?
Say it again.
June 17th, 1994. I think it was Game 5 of the NBA Finals was on.
I probably was at some bar down on Elliston.
Arnold Palmer was playing in his final U.S. Open of his illustrious career in June of 1994.
No, I'm certain I was in a bar down on Elliston.
And a certain former football player who was wanted for questioning resulting from his ex-wife's murder went on the run in Los Angeles. And the NBA Finals and every other major event that was happening that day, that evening, stopped. And 95 million people, 95 million people watched the most famous slow-speed police chase in history. OJ Simpson is dead. We'll discuss next on The Murphy Show. I want you to mark your calendar for June 1st. That is the day when we expect the 4th annual open house at the Glock store to kick off from 10 until 2. I will be there. I hope that you are there as well. I want you to mark your calendar for June. Hold on. That was me. I'll be there. I want you to be there as well at the Glock store. Let's talk about that. Now, I want you to go to the Glock store long before June 1st, but if you do go to the open house, you'll be eligible for incredible prizes, over $10,000 worth of prizes at the Glock store given away on June 1st. That's why I want you to mark the calendar. But, between April and June, that's way too long to wait to go get ammo or accessories. Any need that you have, Second Amendment need that you might have, they have available for you at the Glock store. And I encourage you to stop by. You can shop first on their website, glockstore.com. That's glockstore.com. Or you can head over to shoot270.com and find out what kind of shooting training you might want. They've got full schedules there. They've got trainers there, and they have shooting rooms. Never shooting lanes, shooting rooms at the Glock store. Glockstore.com or shoot270.com. And remember, mark that calendar, June 1st. I'll be there, Dan Mandis, Chris Hand, at the open house, 4th annual at the Glock store. Hey, friends, Matt Murphy. Defend Systems is a life safety and security consultation firm. They're based right here in Middle Tennessee. You know Brink Fiddler. You hear him often on the Murphy Show, and I invite you to give him a call to see how he can help you in your place of business, your church, your school, or anywhere that people gather. They are a life safety and security consultation firm. Their clients include schools, corporations, healthcare facilities, law firms, manufacturing facilities, corporate headquarters, entertainment venues, country music tours, and so much more. Really, anywhere that people gather, you need to be trained to understand what to do in the unlikely event, and it is unlikely, that you might have trouble. You might have a workplace violence situation that needs to be diffused, or an active shooter situation, God forbid. Security improvement consultation available as well, plus rapid response medical training, emergency and intruder action plan training as well. Defend Systems. Life happens fast in a dangerously developing world, and hope is not a plan, friends. It is time to get trained with the best. Defend Systems. Call Brink Fiddler today at 615-236-6484, 236-6484, or defendsystems.com. That's defendsystems.com.
It's Friday Eve all day long on the Matt Murphy Show.
They know how that gets me, and they do it to me anyway. Will anyone come to my defense? Anyone at all? 227 Supertalk 99.7 WTN, Matt Murphy and you. Moving through this Thursday edition of the show. Happy to have you with us. If you're wanting to, you are able to communicate directly with us, 615-737-9986, 615-737-WWTN. So do you remember a lot of people, I mean, I would put something about the OJ Simpson trial in the category of everyone remembers where they were. Whether it is the Bronco chase, I remember where I was. The verdict, most of us remember where we were. And everything that happened in between. So the Bronco chase was on June 17th, 1994. That's the date that I did not have to look up. For some reason, I remember it. He did not go on trial until January of 25. It seemed to be an open and shut case considering the amount of forensic evidence that they had against OJ Simpson. Sadly, and I say sadly because justice was not served for Nicole Brown Simpson or Ron Goldman, OJ Simpson eventually was acquitted, found not guilty of the charges against him due to, frankly, lies, head fakes, subterfuge, and a pathetic, and that's by the defense, and a Pathetic prosecution. Marcia Clark and Chris Darden ought to be ashamed of themselves to this very day.
Everything about that seemed like they thought they were so in the bag that they didn't have to work for it.
I mean, the fact that, obviously the slow speed chase was not admitted. None of that stuff was admitted. They had forensic evidence. They had blood in his room. They had blood on his socks. They had cuts on his hands. They had a bloody glove, for goodness sake. They had him late getting back from the murder. They had all of these things. They never found the rest of the stuff. It is believed that he took that with him when he went on his trip. I guess it was to Chicago, and dumped it somewhere. They had all of this forensic evidence, and somehow, and I know how, I think I know how, a jury got duped. A jury of OJ's peers. Sadly, there was enough animosity. Well, let me back up for a second. I understand the concept of jury nullification. And I sincerely believe that for at least several people on that jury, it was a matter of jury nullification. If you don't know what I mean, I'll explain it in just a moment, and we'll get your thoughts on it. Where were you when OJ killed people? And come on. Come on. Does anybody not believe that anymore? Obviously, he was found guilty in civil trial. He was found criminally liable, or civilly liable, pardon me, despite not being able to retry him criminally. OJ Simpson eventually served a little bit of time for stealing his own items back, which I think is funny. He forcibly stole items that he claimed belonged to him in Las Vegas, Nevada, served some prison time as a result, and he is now dead at the age of 76. And I don't feel sad about it at all, because I don't feel sad when murderers die. It is 12:31 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Hey, friends, Matt Murphy here, yourhealthplanman.com, yourhealthplanman.com. I'm going to say the website quite often, so much so that I want you to go there. What is Murphy talking about? I'm talking about yourhealthplanman.com, because Pat Davis, who is Your Health Plan Man, wants you to go to the website, wants you to check out what he does for a living. He finds you the best health insurance deals, well, period. He shops from every insurer out there available to us. And he makes sure that he finds the right deal for you. He does not work for insurance companies. He works for you. He works for me, as a matter of fact. When the time came to find my wife health insurance, we knew that we wanted the best coverage possible. She had some particular needs in mind. And so instead of going through employer coverage, no offense to my bosses here, we went to Pat Davis, and he found a freedom of choice plan that allowed us to pick our doctors. It's lower cost than Obamacare. The monthly premiums independent of the income, so there's no surprise tax bills. I mean, it's just better, folks. I encourage you to go and make the call today. 855-4PLAN-MAN. That's 855-475-2662. Or go to yourhealthplanman.com. That's yourhealthplanman.com. They'll design a plan that's managed by you and not by the government. It's Pat Davis and yourhealthplanman.com. Super Talk 99.7 WTN. A lot of reaction to where were you? Where were you when the chase happened? I remember I was at an apartment complex in Carrollton, Georgia. I was going to school there at West Georgia College, now University of West Georgia. And I was sitting in my apartment with my roommate, and the television was on. We were really not watching it. And then that's when the chase came on. And that slow speed thing happened for a while. Al Cowlings driving the vehicle, OJ in the back, had a disguise and had all of this stuff like he was going to run. He had a lot of cash, and none of that stuff was admitted into testimony, sadly. And then the next year, it was the verdict, and I was at a different house in Carrollton, Georgia, on Chandler Street when the verdict was read. Looking back on it, it's impossible for those who missed this time in history. The OJ trial and the resulting decision. I don't think it's possible to overstate how much the divide happened on racial lines. Sadly.
Oh, yeah, it's impossible.
I mean, it just did.
Yeah.
And that's not to say that there weren't white people that thought that OJ was innocent. It's not to say that there weren't black people that thought that OJ did it. But in 1995, when the verdict happened, the different reactions that you hear about, just fascinating. I did not know Erica at the time. She mentioned that she was working at a daycare, and there's just a variety of different people of all backgrounds and colors, and many of the people, and I'm not saying this is right, I'm not saying it's wrong, I'm saying it is history. It happened this way. And much of it had to do with, I won't say much of it, some of it had to do with Rodney King and the verdict in the Rodney King trial against the 4 police officers who were acquitted of wrongdoing in that case. Then the aftermath of that and the riots in L.A., which had happened, in 1992, I guess? Not too far gone in the rearview mirror. But the concept of jury nullification, I believe, was at play during the OJ trial because the evidence was clear, and there was a lot of subterfuge, and there was a lot of head faking, and there was a lot of look at this, not that. They drug Mark Furman through the mud.
Very effectively.
I mean, yeah.
With his own words.
And he hurt himself with it. I mean, he had used the N-word, and then he claimed that he didn't, and they played a recording of him using the N-word. So every bit of his he was the lead detective in the case. Every bit of his testimony was just trash by them. But that didn't mean that the glove wasn't real. That didn't mean that the DNA evidence was tainted. And you had to believe all of these things in order to believe that OJ Simpson was not in some way responsible for the murder of Nicole Brown Simpson and Ronald Goldman. But
There was a real sense from the black community. It almost felt like they were getting some revenge for the racism of the LAPD.
I feel the same way. Yeah. Yeah.
Maybe he's guilty, but you people have done this to us for so long.
Right.
We're not going to feel bad about it.
Right. We don't. I felt that at the time, and I think it's true that in the hearts of many, it was this idea of, you've gotten away with things for so long, we're going to celebrate this. I will give Johnny Cochran credit wherever he is. I hope he's not wearing a sweater. OJ either. Johnny Cochran was masterful in that trial. If it doesn't fit, you must acquit. If it doesn't fit, you must acquit. Masterful. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, there was a point where they showed the shoes that left footprints. They demonstrated that those were shoes that O.J. Simpson owned, despite the fact that he claimed that he did not. These were footprints at the scene of the murder. And then they found a bloody glove, one of two, behind O.J. Simpson's house. And they demonstrated that O.J. Simpson owned that style of glove. They show pictures of him at a variety of social events with those gloves on. And then eventually they asked him to try them on. And OJ Simpson apparently, the rumor was that Johnny Cochran set it up where OJ like ate a tremendous amount of salt, like trying to get his hands to swell.
That was such a pivotal moment in the trial that it became a joke in the Seinfeld finale.
Oh, it became it was before social media memes.
Yeah.
It was a social media meme. If it doesn't fit, you must have quit. That they gave him a lot of salt to puff up his hands. Johnny Cochran was also aware that some of the chemicals used testing the glove shrinks the leather, and you got to get that leather pliable again. All of those factors. Why in the hell, if you're Marcia Clark or Christopher Darden, do you allow that to happen, that spectacle to happen, without clearly knowing how it's going to work out? I don't know. But when O.J. Simpson made this huge dog and pony show, Kathy, I know Johnny Cochran's dead. Why are you telling me that Johnny Cochran's dead? We all know that. Oh, anyway. Sorry, got distracted on the Members Nutrition Super Text line. Yes, Johnny Cochran's dead. We're aware.
You do have to give those guys credit, though, because their ethical job, their requirement is to represent their client to the best of their ability and to get him off of any accusations that they can. And they did a masterful job of it.
Well, I mean, and I can talk about lack of ethics. You can talk about all of those things. Their job, above and beyond anything else, is to force the prosecution to do their job. And you're right, Bell. I can look at it a number of different ways. I can talk bad about Johnny Cochran, who is dead, or F. Lee Bailey, who is dead. F. Lee Bailey was a part of that trial. What's his name? Kardashian?
Kardashian.
Yeah, Kardashian was a part of it.
He's
it was a dream team of attorneys, truly.
And was named such.
And was named as such, right? But their job, in a defense, their job is to force the prosecution to do the prosecution's job, and they did it. And that's true. 4857 reminds me, and that's true, that he also had a rubber glove on when he tried the glove on, which probably...
Yeah, it was those, it was like a doctor's glove so that he wouldn't contaminate the evidence.
Right. But, I don't understand this concept that Rick just brought this up, and someone downstairs brought it up too. I don't know that I've heard this rumor that... where have I been? That his son killed him? I think we're dealing with Occam's razor here. OJ consistently threatened Nicole Brown Simpson. OJ told Nicole Brown Simpson, and she told other people that if he ever caught her with another man, he would kill them. He said that. He beat her. So I don't know why we search for other killers. The killer's pretty obvious. His footprints were at the scene. Her blood was in his Bronco. Her blood was on his sock in his home. Her blood and Ronald Goldman's blood on the glove. So I don't believe that there is any question whatsoever that Nicole Brown Simpson and Ronald Goldman were killed by O.J. Simpson.
I remember seeing F. Lee Bailey do an interview where he was trying to... And I don't know if this was before or after the trial was over, but he was trying to say, well, the people that really did this were mobsters of some sort who would slit your throat and then eat spaghetti off of your forehead. Trying to kind of point, and it's like, you know what? All you got to do is put doubt in the minds of the jurors. You don't have to create all these stupid scenarios.
Well, I think they managed to create a certain level of doubt in the abilities of the LAPD and their forensic team. And for others, I maintain that I will to my dying day believe, and I don't have any evidence, I don't have any special knowledge. I simply believe that there were several people on that jury that were not about to give a victory to the Los Angeles Police Department, and they didn't care. They were living in the aftermath of the riots that ensued after the acquittal of the police officers that beat hell out of Rodney King. And they were going to get comeuppance, and they didn't care. I also believe that there was a lot of concern, and I don't know that this had anything to do with the jury pondering the evidence before them, but I remember that there was a tremendous amount of concern as to what would happen if O.J. was found guilty in that case. Because it sadly did divide along racial lines. It divided along racial lines in a way that it probably shouldn't have. 0231 says, I hope there's a diary. One way or the other. I know. If OJ Simpson has pre-recorded a video of himself admitting to he wrote a book called If I Did It.
Here's how I would have.
That's what he wrote a book. Everybody knows that, right? He wrote a book called If I Did It, and he started off by saying, hey, I didn't do this, but if I did it, this is exactly the way I would have done it. And then he details the crime that he committed. I don't know of any reasonable person. Are there really people that think he didn't do it? You think still?
Oh, of course, yeah.
You think?
Yeah, without a doubt.
After all this time, huh? Randy's next. Maybe Randy's one of them. I don't know. Hey, Randy, how are you, buddy?
How you doing, hon?
I'm good, Randy. I'm glad you called me.
Yes, sir. All righty. I have a photostatic memory.
Oh, okay.
When OJ fired F. Lee Bailey, he came out. He fired him. He came outside and talked to reporters and admitted to these reporters. I hope somebody else remembers this. Admitted to him, O.J. Simpson admitted to him that he did kill both of them. And he said, I cannot represent you anymore. He got fired. I remember that.
I don't remember F. Lee Bailey getting fired. Why don't I remember that?
Either he got fired or he quit. One of the two. Because he was replaced. And as far as the glove, this is a surgical glove they had on his hand, and it's very abrasive. And they're trying to put that vinyl glove over that.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't work. It doesn't work. Too much abrasive. It's too abrasive.
Well, that's right. It was never going to work properly. I do not remember. Randy, I'll defer to your photogenic memory. Because I don't remember F. Lee Bailey being fired. I remember him being a part of the celebration after the acquittal. I remember him being in the courtroom.
I remember him stepping out to reporters. And either he removed himself from the case or he was fired. But he said this, that O.J. Simpson admitted to him that he killed both of them.
I feel like I would remember that, Randy. I'm not doubting your memory, but I feel like I would remember if F. Lee Bailey publicly said that O.J. Simpson admitted to him that he killed them.
Well, you can't find it nowhere on the internet. It disappeared
because it probably didn't happen. I just my
he
thought on it,
ethically
right?
would not be allowed to make that statement in the middle of a trial. And I do remember who was the guy that started LegalZoom.com that was on the team. I can't remember the lawyer's name. He was the older guy. He was about Bailey's age, but the two of them were jostling for control. F. Lee
Bailey lost lead counsel control of the case.
And OJ said, no, Lee, you're not in charge anymore. He is.
But he stayed on the case.
He stayed on the case, but he threw a little tantrum about it. But there's no way that he came out and said, OJ, he would have been disbarred so fast that his head would have spun around.
Alan Dershowitz was on that team. I just looked him up. F. Lee Bailey, Robert Blazer, Sean Chapman, Holly, Bob Shapiro is who you're thinking about.
That's
Bob
exactly
Shapiro
what
is
I'm
who you're
thinking
thinking about. Alan Dershowitz and Robert Kardashian. And then Barry Scheck, I think.
Barry was their forensics guy.
Mm-hmm. No, Randy, I appreciate you. Memory's a strange thing, and I'll defer to your photogenic memory on this. But I really believe that someone else would believe or would remember what you're saying. And I don't remember that. It's 1250 Super Talk 99.7. You know what? We ought to do this when we've got Jay on in the 1 o'clock hour because he's the best guy to he's one of the first people that I had a conversation with about the role of defense attorneys in American justice and how important it is. How important it is when we say, how do they sleep at night? And I've been guilty of that too. And I made the joke about, I hope that Johnny Cochran doesn't have a sweater on when he died, but they serve a very, very important purpose. and that is to keep prosecutors honest and to make sure that prosecutors demonstrate and prove things beyond a reasonable doubt. 8335 says, somebody please tell Matt Murphy the definition of photogenic. I thought he said photogenic. Did he say photographic?
No, he said photogenic.
That's what I thought. That's why I used the term. I know that
photogenic is what Matt is not.
That's exactly, yeah. I'm aware that I am not photogenic, and I am not photographic. But I am late. It's 51 after the hour on Super Talk. The Dr. Paz Sleep Apnea and TMJ Solution Center is here for you, friends. It's time to get over to the Dr. Paz website. I'm going to send you over there as soon as I get done talking, or even you can go right now like I'm doing. Look, I'm doing it right now, drposs.com, drposs.com. Here's the deal. I don't want you to delay because you could sleep better in the next several weeks. Thank you to the Dr. Paz Sleep Apnea and TMJ Solution Center. They have 2 locations to serve you. One's in Brentwood. That's the location that I go to. There's also one in Murfreesboro. Here's the deal, folks. Dr. Paz, and it says right when you go to the Sleep Apnea and TMJ Solution Center, I heard about Dr. Paz on the radio. Would you do that for me? Why don't you go ahead and click that button? If you're experiencing headaches when you sleep or excessive fatigue, if there's ringing in your ears, if you snore, if your partner snores, it could be due to sleep apnea. Do you know if you have it? 25% of Americans who have sleep apnea are not aware of it. Well, the problem could be your sleep apnea. It could be in your jaw. Dr. Stephen Paz and the team at the Sleep Apnea and TMJ Solution Center are committed to helping you achieve better sleep and comfort using their latest technology. I had an appliance developed specifically for me. We did a 3D scan of my mouth. The appliance was developed. We fitted it, and now I'm sleeping better. I'm getting more sleep. I'm getting more energy. That's tough on liberals, man. It is rough on liberals when I get the amount of sleep that I'm getting now. Thank you to Dr. Paz. Go to drpaz.com and give him a call and schedule an appointment today. Dr. Paz and the Sleep Apnea and TMJ Solution Center. Super Talk 99.7 WTN. This just in. Hour number 2 will involve Jay StClair, Friday on Thursday, and No Scott Sapicki. He's got a number of meetings happening right now at the General Assembly, which may or may not involve the governor. I may or may not have supposed, I may or may not should have said that, but I did.
He's not meeting with the governor. He's going to Subway for lunch.
Maybe so. Or I hear there's food trucks down there. Somebody was telling me about, was it Sapicki? It was somebody telling me about some delicious food truck items down there. I'm hungry. Can you tell? I need a pimento cheese sandwich a la the Masters. It's 2 more hours to go. Murphy Show, Super Talk 99.7 WTN. We'll talk FISA next. Hello. It is the Matt Murphy Show. Hour number 2 starts right now, this Thursday edition. Lots going on, lots locally, lots nationally, internationally, and we'll try to cover it all for you before we hand off to the drive with Brian Wilson this afternoon. Happy to have you with us. Happy to take your telephone calls, 615-737-9986. You may call us at any point of your choosing. We'll talk with our man, Jay StClair, coming up in just a moment because I am not here tomorrow. And because I am not here tomorrow, we compress 2 days into one. Now, there'll be, Cameron Smith will be here, capably carrying you through your Friday. But because I'm not here tomorrow, we try to cram 2 days into one. So we'll have Friday Mac Attack in the 2 o'clock hour. Excited about that. You know what? I did not prep StClair on this subject matter, but I'm interested in his thoughts on the decision on the part of the House of Representatives not to reauthorize FISA. It was a political decision, but it has legal ramifications. And I think this is the way our government should work, right? Many representatives have heard, including Andy Ogles, who was on with Dan Mandis on Nashville's Morning News this morning. In case you missed it, you can find it on the podcast of your choosing. I think Scott Desjardins. I did not hear Desjardins. I heard Ogles with Dan. Apparently, Desjardins voted in favor of the reauthorization of FISA, something that Desjardins and I got into it regarding that, a couple of months ago.
Yeah.
I'm not cutting it off with him. I like Scott, but I just have a strong disagreement with the manner in which government entities like NSA and the FBI and other organizations have used FISA warrants in order to spy on American citizens. I don't like it.
I saw Rose put out a tweet saying that he was not going to vote for that rule to allow it, but then he wasn't listed as one of the people voting against it.
I think the only person...
Burchett voted against it.
Ogles voted against it. I don't have the complete list. I can get it. I'll find it. But
Wait, should I play this dated old thing?
Yeah, why don't you go ahead and play that? We got another one coming, though. My boy promised me.
Yeah,
Ladies
sure.
and gentlemen,
Right.
Normally you hear this on official Fridays on Friday, but it is First Amendment Freestyle Friday on Thursday, as I have a very important meeting, and I've got it's more of a seminar to get to. I'll talk to Jay StClair about this in just a moment. Jay StClair joins us. Hello, Jay. How are you?
Hey, Matt, if I were any better right now, I'd be playing the hard ways.
I thought you might have been saying, I thought you were going Masters, but no, the hard ways. Man, oh, man. That means it's late into the evening and you've had one too many. That's what that means.
I'm either making a lot of money or I've had too much to drink.
Well, that's what Jay and I, when we stand at our investment seminar, Jay always tells me, now don't let me play the hard ways too early. You just make me I as your best friend and as my life consultant, I have learned that I have to make you earn the hard ways.
That's exactly right.
Uh-huh.
That's exactly the right way to say it.
and buddy, we earn them. Well, yeah, Jay and I are going on another real estate development junket and investment seminar over the weekend. Hence, I will not be here Friday, and hence Jay will not be here either. Before we get into some legal matters really quickly, a lot of folks want to know how last weekend went. I think I've got a little inside intel on it, but tell everybody how it went at Daytona.
It was great, man. The whole experience was better than I expected. Just being at that facility down at, you actually go underneath the track through the tunnel that the haulers go through for the NASCAR races. And there's just so much history around there and just an incredible facility. It was great. We had a great time, great teams. And, so it was a 14-hour race, long race, right? And we were doing good up until about hour 6 or 7. We had 2 cars. Our car was in 5th place in our class. The other car was actually, I think, in 3rd or 4th place in its class. But then we lost the clutch in the car I was going to drive. And, we didn't have a clutch around there. So we went to AutoZone, literally, and bought a clutch, came back, and put it in. And when that happened, we were asking the crew, well, what do you guys think? And they said, we think we can get it done in about 2 hours. And it was 1 hour and 58 minutes.
Wow.
And so they put this AutoZone clutch back in it. And I had not driven the car, man. I never drove it and had never been on the track. And so they said, okay, Jake, go. And I said, no, get somebody in the car that's driven it. Let's make sure everything's fine. So the owner of the car went out and took a few laps. He said, yeah, I think it's fine. So I got in and went out and turned one good lap, turned a really good fast lap, felt really good. And then I was coming in the second lap, coming off a big NASCAR track to the infield, and the clutch blew up.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh.
So, didn't get quite as much track time as I wanted to, but the overall experience was great.
Wow. At least he got out. At least he got out and got a lap. At least he got one. I know he wanted many more, but.
And we'll be going back many times. But so anyway, I'm now on the team, and let's see. Next month we're in Atlanta. June we're in North Carolina. September we're in South Carolina, and then December there's a race at the track here in Birmingham.
Oh, so you're a regular member of the team now?
Oh yeah. Absolutely.
All right. I love that, Jay. That's awesome.
It's going to be great. Great good guys, and it's fun.
That's absolutely fabulous. Well, I mean, part of me, when you told me, I have heard this story once before via text, and I was sad for you that it all happened. Part of me was kind of happy for you that the clutch didn't go out on your watch.
Yeah, right.
I mean, I know, when you're new, I mean, at least that's the way that I would feel about it. Is like, if I'm new to the team, I don't want to break the car the second lap I'm in the car. But
no, that's right. Yeah, it just happens. 14 hours is a lot to ask out these cars.
That's right.
But what about this, man? 120 cars were entered, and I don't know how many finished the race, probably about half of them. What would you guess the margin of victory, Bale? So the race for 14 hours. What do you think the margin of victory was?
Okay, it's 14 hours. It's it's a 14 hours, and you just, every time you click a lap, you get credit for a lap.
That's right. And the laps take about 2 minutes and 20 seconds. Okay.
So, Bell, over 14 hours between first and second place, what is the margin of victory? What do you think?
A few tenths of a second.
Okay. Bell has guessed a few tenths of a second, Jay.
Well, they raced for 14 hours.
I'm going to guess the margin of victory was 5 laps.
That's a great
Wait a minute. You're saying that the person who won was 5 laps in front of number 2?
Yes. Over the course of 14 hours, where you have driver changes, where you have engine.
Oh, okay. All right. I'm sorry. I was confused. I didn't. I thought this was who gets to the finish line last versus, if you're running the same. I'm ignorant of this.
Yep.
Okay. I mean, tell me what it is, Jay.
Your guess. It was 1 second.
Wow, you were right. Holy moly!
They raced for 14 hours, man.
That's incredible.
So 1 and 2 both did all the laps they needed, and one only got to the finish line by 1 second sooner than 2.
Well, it's not even a matter of the laps that they needed. It's how many laps can you do within the allotted time.
Oh, okay. I see what you're saying. Yeah, so they both did it in the same amount.
After 14 hours, they were 1 second apart from one. That's incredible. I thought I was right on the mark.
And one was a Porsche and one was a BMW. But like the Le Mans, 24 hours of Le Mans, that happens. Or it's not 1 second, but they race for 24 hours, and often the margin of victory is less than a minute. But for it to be right around 1 second was just remarkable.
Well, congratulations on the event. I'm excited about hearing about more of it. A lot of the listeners wanted to find out about that, and that's good. That's great. That's great stuff. All right, let's. Where are we on this New York case, Jay? We always like to get caught up on Trump lawfare. That's what we call it, Trump lawfare. Yep. Where are we on this deal in New York?
Well, it's going to trial next week, man, and so there's 4 criminal cases. There's the 2 federal cases. The one down in Florida involving the documents, classified documents. The one in Washington, D.C. involving January 6th, let's say. And then the sideshow over in Atlanta with Fannie or whatever her name.
Mm-hmm.
Really. And then this one in New York, man. And there's been less talk about this one than any of the others. I've heard a lot of legal pundits say the case they were most worried about from Trump's perspective was the classified documents case in Florida. I never really understood why lawyers or legal analysts thought that was his most dangerous case. I have always thought this case in New York was the most dangerous case for Trump. And here's why. What would you guess, Matt, is the single most important factor in the outcome of a criminal case being tried to a jury? What do you think is the single most important thing in the outcome of the case? Let me give you some examples. Bell's a smart guy, and I'm going
Not
to
really.
guess that Bell, I bet you Bell would say, well, Jay, the single most important thing is whether the guy is guilty.
No. I have my
Yeah.
guess. I've written my guess down. You want my guess?
The second, let me just give
Okay.
you some
All right.
ideas.
All right.
I think another smart person might say, Pamela Furr might say, well, no, the single most important thing is really not whether he's guilty or not. It's whether the state has proven that he's guilty.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, that's a pretty good guess.
Mm-hmm. It is.
What do you think, man?
It's the jury.
It's exactly right. You're so
That's not
Wow,
fair.
Tom.
You've had years to
I've
be
had
able.
20 years of golf experience with the man. If I don't get that right after 20 years,
Then
Jay
he
is
should
going,
disown you.
He is going to disown me as my life consultant.
You're exactly right, man. Think about this. Somebody their life may be on the line, right? They may be trying for capital murder. And the most important thing is not whether they did it or not. It's who's on the jury.
Well, Jay, there happens to be a case that comes to my mind because of events that happened this morning that I can use as an example of what you're talking
If
about.
it doesn't, if the glove don't fit,
You must
got
acquit.
to quit.
Yeah.
I've used that example over and over again with clients, man. They'll ask me, well, what do you think's going to happen at trial, Jay? And I'll say, ma'am, I don't know. Silly me. I thought OJ did it. But 12 people in that jury said not guilty. And you know why? Because of the composition of the jury.
Well, that's right. And I will long believe, and I want to get to your point on New York, but just as a side note, I said it earlier today, that I think that the prosecution was horrible in the OJ Simpson case. I think they just did such a poor job. And obviously the defense knew what they were doing. I want to do this in a minute, but after we cover the New York case, because I want you, and you've done it over the years, to, in your words, because you do it so well, describe to the audience the role of a defense attorney, because I'm as guilty as anyone of casting aspersions at people like Johnny Cochran, F. Lee Bailey, Bob Shapiro, for what they did, which is clearly create a dynamic by which, in my opinion, a killer got off.
Right.
But that's their job. And their job is so, and you've explained it to me over the years, how crucial that job is to the structure of American justice.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to talk about that in a second, right after the break. But before we lose it, jury selection in this case. So you believe that this is the tricky wicket, right? That it's next to impossible for Donald Trump to receive some sort of impartiality with a jury in New York City?
That's right, to get a fair jury. I mean, jury selection will take a long time, and I don't know. I think it's being drawn out of Manhattan. I don't know, maybe it's in one of the other boroughs, but it's going to be a critical part of it. But now here's one thing working to his advantage. He really only needs one. He doesn't need to win this case.
Mm-hmm.
It'd be great if he did, but he just needs to avoid losing it. In a criminal case, the jury verdict has to be unanimous. And so if he could just get one person to hold out and get a hung jury, then in my book, that's a win for Trump.
Yep.
But it's going to be a tough battle.
How long do you expect this trial to last? Do you know?
Well, at least weeks and maybe a month.
But you feel like he'll get there will be an initial verdict before November, for example.
Absolutely. No question about that. No question about that.
So we'll get all of that. I mean, and you know what all goes into if he is found guilty, because this is criminal, right?
Well, what are they going to do? Are they going to put him in prison?
Jay, it would not surprise me one bit.
Yeah.
And I think this just makes him stronger. Y'all heard it.
that-
Y'all heard it here, right? Y'all heard it here first. If he's found guilty, I think they'll try to remand him into custody.
Yeah.
I think they'll try to do that.
Well, look at what they did in the civil case, right? Trying to make him post a $500 million bond. There's no reason to think that this criminal case is going to go any differently than the civil case did, man.
Agreed.
So I think that's probably right. Oh, it's going to be, I mean, if they convict him, it's going to be a circus.
Well, and the likelihood is greater than not. When you and I sit and try to analyze what's going on, you from a legal perspective, me from a political one, and we both come to the conclusion that it's probably a best case scenario that we get a hung jury, that you get one or two holdouts.
Right.
If that's our best case scenario, then it's going to be a heck of a summer. All right, Jay's with us. I'm going to ask him to give his thoughts on the role of a defense attorney in the aftermath of learning that OJ Simpson is now dead at the age of 76. Reflecting on that case, most people know where they were, either when the Bronco chase happened or when OJ was acquitted, found not guilty of killing two people. But Jay has talked to me about this over the years, the role of a defense attorney and why it's so important that they don't concern themselves so much with whether they think someone did something or not, but they offer a robust defense for that person and why that's so important to our American judicial system. It's 121 on Super Talk. Plus your questions. Any questions you got for Jay StClair? 615-737-9986. Where do you keep your valuables in your home? Where do you keep them so that in the unlikely event, an unfortunate event, that someone breaks into your home that they can't find them or they can't get to them? Well, what about fire? Have you thought about this? Do you keep your valuables someplace that's secure from fire as well? What if I told you there was a place, Nashville Safe House, where you can go and find both in one convenient thing? That would be a safe from Nashville Safe House. They have some of the highest rated from a fireproof perspective safes in the business. They've got brands like Browning, Fort Knox, and many, 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 many others. I'm just naming two. And those fire ratings are incredible. That means that they're going to protect your valuables, protect the things that matter to you, your important paperwork and your guns from fire or theft in the event that you have someone break into your home. That's what it's all about, right? Protecting that which protects your family, protecting valuables that are so important to you, sentimental and otherwise. Nashville Safe House does these things. They have a safe that's right for you. They have over 200 on their showroom floor, over 600 in total, and I promise you they can get you one delivered jiffy quick once you go and select it from Nashville Safe House. Mark and his team want to say hello? Go by and see them at 4th Avenue South, right across the street from City Cemetery, or go online to NashvilleSafehouse.com. That's NashvilleSafehouse.com. I was just texting Gino Bulso. Good friend and Representative Gino Bulso, who voted against a bill. There was a bill. Hold on, I'm finishing up my text. There was a bill before the Tennessee General Assembly today that would ban allowing first cousins to marry. And Gino was emphatically against this bill. I think it passed. It was fairly widely supported. But Bulso voted against it because his grandparents were first cousins. So I've invited him on later on to talk about this vote. In the meantime, Jay StClair is with us for a few more moments, compressing Thursday and Friday into one day, and Friday J is in progress right now. About 5 or so minutes left with Jay StClair. Jay, I'm curious in your words, because you've told me this over the years, and it's so well spoken, the role of a defense attorney and why so often we get it wrong. I think we have emotional investment and involvement in cases. And, OJ's a great example. People ask themselves, how in the world could Johnny Cochran live with himself? How could F. Lee Bailey or Robert Shapiro live with themselves? Alan Dershowitz, how could he live with himself? Because obviously these are smart people. They know very well OJ did it, and they got a murderer off. And what do you say to that?
Well, it's not their job to decide the case, man. Everybody plays a role, and our legal system very intentionally is based on an adversarial model. That's not true in Europe and a lot of other places where you just have a judge and then a defense lawyer. Well, here there's a prosecutor, and it's the prosecutor's job to present all the evidence she or he can to convict the person. But then the defendant has an attorney, and it's that person's job to do everything within ethical bounds to convince the jury that the government has not made out their case. And the idea, and this is the language that the law uses, man, that when you put those two adversaries together in the courtroom, in the crucible, I think is the word. Think of a mortar and pestle, the image that I'm trying to call you. You put all those facts in there, and then there's that mortar and pestle that's grinding through those facts. And both sides are having their assumptions and arguments challenged. And the idea is from that truth emerges. It's a little bit, I don't like this analogy perfectly, man, but I like it a lot. I'm a big free market person, and I know that you are too. You don't have a top-down management. You got two competitors out there slugging it out in the marketplace, Coca-Cola and Pepsi, perfect example. And nobody's regulating them. Either one of them can say or do whatever they want to do. Well, the best product wins. And actually, if I think about it, this analogy is pretty good. Same thing in the legal system. You got the prosecutor and you got the defense. And then it's neither one of their jobs to decide the case. It's their job to put on the best case for their client that they can. And the system says that out of that struggle, the truth will emerge.
Mm-hmm.
And I like it. I mean, I like it a lot. I've tried a lot of jury cases, non-jury cases. And I got to be honest with you, Matt. In my personal experience, jury has got it right 99% of the time.
You also taught me this concept years and years ago about how our system is set up to default to freedom. Meaning,
who's the person that said it is better that 100 guilty people go free than one innocent person go to jail?
Is it Blackstone?
I don't know, but that is a cornerstone of our legal system.
Right. I mean, and it's hard for people, especially in emotionally charged cases. The OJ case, once again, is the easiest example. Right. Most people looking at what we saw in front of us clearly saw a guilty person. But in our justice system, it is designed that guilty people go free before innocent people go to jail.
You've said that exactly right, man. And that's not just a thought. That's a cornerstone
Right.
of our system. It's a first principle.
Well, and it's why I've always, more than, it's easy to take pot shots at Cochran and Bailey and all those guys. I far more blame the prosecution because it would just they were just overwhelmed. Just overwhelmed.
And they never even proved flight, man. They didn't prove that he ran, which is the clearest evidence. If you go and try jury cases in the South, you better be able to quote some scripture.
Uh-huh.
And I don't have a lot of scripture quote I remember, but I got this one. I use it a lot. The wicked, if I had been trying that case, man, first thing I would say to the jury, the wicked flee when no one pursues, but the righteous are bold as a lion. That's Proverbs 28:1.
Mm-hmm. Where's he going?
On the jury, why was he fleeing? Because
they couldn't even manage. And I remember this, that they couldn't manage to get that in the case.
I don't think they tried to.
I think you might be. I'll have to look it up, but I know it wasn't a part of the trial, and I couldn't remember if Ito squashed it or if they. I think you're right. I think they decided that would be too much or something in an 11-month trial. That would be too.
Most persuasive evidence of guilt in that case, Matt. The wicked flee even when no one pursues.
Mm-hmm. Where was OJ going? Where was OJ going? What? Where was he going?
Running from?
Yeah.
What was he running from?
Right. Great. I mean, you're right. Jay, if all things go well, you and I are going to reorganize some real estate this weekend. All right?
I'm looking forward to it, buddy.
All right, man. I'll see you soon. Take care, Jay. Thank you.
All right.
There's our legal correspondent, life consultant, and gambling buddy, Jay StClair, for a few moments on this Thursday. Thank you very much.
You're perjuring yourself, sir. You're perjuring yourself.
Well, you say potato, I'll say patata. It's 1:33 on Super Talk. Hello, friends. Matt Murphy for membersnutrition.com. That's membersnutrition.com. Do me a favor, write this down or go over to your website and click on membersnutrition.com. Right there, you'll see immediately the Members Nutrition difference. One, you're going to see lower prices than you've noticed in the big box stores. Number two, you'll see a lot of vitamins and supplements that you don't find in the big box stores. Number three, there's just about everything for anyone and anything that you might need, such as detox supplements, energy supplements, immune, it's so hard for me to say, I screw it up every time, immune boosters, relaxation supplements, men's health supplements, sports nutrition, and much more. I use a little energy supplement in my morning routine. They also have anti-aging and much more, weight management as well. If you're looking for that, right there and available to you. And all of it is available at membersnutrition.com, and all of it is less than you will pay at the big box stores. And thirdly, it's all made right here in the good old USA, which is so important to me. It's membersnutrition.com. That's membersnutrition.com for our friends at Members Nutrition. Tell them Matt Murphy sent you, membersnutrition.com. Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Come on. Let's get it on. 137 Super Talk in progress this Thursday afternoon. Happy to have you with us. Whatever time you're able to give us, we're certainly appreciative of that. It's my final day of the week. Thank you to Cameron Smith for filling in for me tomorrow. Thank you to Jay StClair. No Scott Sapinky today. They are busy attempting to figure out where we are on the Education Scholarship Fund legislation. Senate and House trying to work it out. We will keep you up to date with all of that. In the meantime, at 2:35, about an hour from now, I don't mean to laugh when I say this, but about an hour from now, we will hear from Representative Gino Bulso. If you have not heard, there was a piece of legislation that passed in the House today that would prevent first cousins from marrying. Tennessee House and Senate Democrat Representative Darren Jernigan and Senator Jeff Yarborough introduced a bill to ban marriages by biological first cousins. It's my understanding, I'm just looking at the sheet here. It was sent to me. Thank you for my contact down there. It passed pretty overwhelmingly. It passed 75. This bill by Jernigan, Senate Bill 1917, on third consideration, passed the House of Representatives. The ayes were 75, nays were 2, present not voting 9, not voting 13. So only 2 people voted against this. And one of them was Gino Bulso. And he put up a fight about it. We will speak to Gino Bulso at 2:35 about this. In the meantime, our good friend Steve Abramowitz of Heartland Journal joins us. We've been talking about OJ and Ron Goldman, Nicole Brown Simpson, all the memories that brings back. I mean, it was an era in time, the mid-1990s. I can remember like yesterday where I was when the chase happened. I can remember like yesterday where I was when the verdict was read. Could not believe it, even with everything involvement in that case. Couldn't believe that OJ Simpson was walking away from what I consider to be double homicide. Steve Abramowitz, our good friend, calls in to discuss said same. Hey, Steve, how are you?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Good. How's Heartland Journal?
It's doing very, very well. Very, very well. We've been launched now for 2 weeks, and the clicks keep coming, so we're proud of it.
For those who have missed it, perhaps out of pocket for some time, Steve obviously is a part of Mill Creek View, Tennessee for years. Mill Creek View, Tennessee is now Heartland Journal. Absolutely love it. Love the name. Love the branding. It's all about the Heartland with you and with me and with the good people of Tennessee. So I'm glad that it's going well, Steve.
And we had Senator Janice Bowling on yesterday to tell us all about what you were talking about. We did not talk about cousins marrying, but she's been around a long time and knows a lot of things about why Tennessee is so great. So great show. Check that out.
I like Janice Bowling a lot, and I will be checking it out. I've got a little drive to take after the show today, and I might just pop on the old Heartland Journal on the podcast and let Abramowitz take me on my way. How about that?
Love it. Love it. Love it more than anything.
So you have memories of, you mentioned to me via text, you have memories of OJ and that era in time. Where were you back then?
Venice Beach, California, right there, local news. My roommate was Ron Goldman's girlfriend. So
what?
When the news, oh yes, sir,
What?
yeah. When the news broke and everyone said, oh, it was doing a vengeance, jealousy thing with an affair, I knew day one, no, that's not true. And so it became local news because Brentwood is very small. And for the next 4 or 5 years, we had to deal with post-traumatic stress syndrome and all the rest because it was devastating, quite devastating.
So it was long told to us. I mean, there was some misinformation that came out right at the beginning that Ron Goldman might have had some sort of intimate relationship with Nicole Brown Simpson. But then we found out later that he was a waiter at a restaurant. He was returning like glasses or something to her. Is that not right?
That's right. She left her glasses behind, place that we all frequented all the time, and he brought them to her on his way home. No big deal. And wrong place, wrong time. The rest of the evidence is pretty self-evident. But yeah, he actually, on the plane home from Chicago and LA, he told a seatmate that there were 2 bodies. But when he was notified by the police, they only said a murder took place on your property. They never said that. So that was one of the guilty conscience moments of him. I did want to mention one thing too, and I remember it like yesterday. The defense team was a dream team, no question about it. You come up against that buzzsaw, you're going to it's going to be really hard to prove anything. But Marcia Clark, who was really, really good at her job, was denied the last day of evidence when they interviewed his maid. She wasn't there. She actually had to do for being a mom, and that really probably would have been under cross-examination, a really silver bullet in the prosecution. So there was so much going on between Ito being a TV hog and wanting all the attention, and then of course Cochran doing all of his wonderful things. It was the trial of the century, but it was also the farce of the century.
I certainly agree with that. I had no idea, Steve. I mean, I know you've been around, man, but I had no idea how intimately knowledgeable and really in some way involved, considering. So Steve Abramowitz tells us that you were rooming with the girlfriend of Ronald Goldman at the time that he died, and you were just right there in the midst of it. What was it like to be I mean, we understand. I was in Carrollton, Georgia at the time. Most people could put themselves where they were at the time that all of this went down. What was it like to be in the epicenter?
It was terrible because his sister and his father were obviously the victims as much as the Simpson family. They had to sue civilly to actually get discovery of all the truth, which they won, but he never paid. He did keep a promise. He said he was going to pursue the killer to the gates of hell, and I guess he just followed him yesterday. It was terrible. I mean, think of it like a friend of the family being completely slaughtered, and then you have to go through the 24/7 news cycle. Cable news was actually brand new back then. To see it over and over and over again with this rumor and the fancy shoes in the puddles of blood. Well, that blood they're talking about was Ron's blood, or the fibers on his clothes or his hat. That was Ron's fibers. So you're talking about a friend slaughtered. And again, wrong place, wrong time. Didn't have anything to do with the reasons why he would kill his wife.
Man, oh man, what a fascinating time that was. I mean,
But here's another thing I want to make sure to say, and I don't want your whole show, but Kardashian, aside from unleashing his daughters on us for the next 40 years, he was on video carrying a Versace bag out of OJ's house and denied it. The 15-inch knife was never discovered. There's probably something like that. So when you talk about defense attorneys being, doing their job and holier than thou and like Michael Crichton movie, not always. Some of the times these guys are just bad dudes. Rest in peace.
Well, sure. I mean, yeah, sure. And never proven necessarily whether he did anything that would have risen to the level of impropriety. I'm talking about Kardashian now, but obviously there is a belief that OJ got help to eliminate the evidence that was against him, and that everybody believes that he dropped the bloody glove. He went over the fence because he couldn't go through the front door because the limo driver was already there, and that he had to get the bloody clothes somewhere. There's, speculation that he took them on the plane with him. There's speculation, and, frankly, you could have done this in 1994, Steve. Speculation that he might have taken the knife with him on the plane and then disposed of it in Chicago. And I've heard the rumor mill or the speculation that in the aftermath while he was in Chicago that he got good close confidants to help him dispose of some of that material. Obviously,
Well, remember he had Kato Kalin living on the thing, and they found some stuff on the property. I mean, there's a lot of that, but the one that was actually tested was the one that was in the Versace bag It's actually probably not Versace. I can't remember my fashion designers off the top of my head, but it doesn't really matter. But that's the one that Kardashian walked out of and played dumb about, oh, well, even though I'm a brilliant lawyer, I didn't realize that might have been evidence. So, yeah.
Well, no, it's incredible. I said this morning when I found out, I'm sorry, not sorry. I don't have any thoughts. I don't care. OJ's dead, and I believe that a killer has died, has left the earth, and based on his lack of remorse, I don't really have any remorse for him. Maybe I should. Maybe I'm not as faithful as I should be. But
no, and I called because of the Goldman family, who I love, and I feel bad for them.
Mm-hmm.
The media, especially in LA, and the police and everybody else covered this up so much. But Barbara Walters did interview Kardashian, and he does talk about this bag that I'm talking about. So it's not as if I'm making it up and there's no evidence. But Shapiro, Cochran, the Dream Team, highly paid guns, Dershowitz, there was no way that he wasn't. But that's what's amazing, is that the civil trial is where everything actually came out. The reason why we even know all these details, those guys weren't involved in that. And the reason why the Kardashians and the Simpsons had the falling out is because he couldn't actually pay them for all that they did. And if you ever watch that verdict, you could actually see it as a Giphy, I think. Kardashian's face just drops. Like, he couldn't even believe that they said not guilty. And so, of course, you asked the question about what the Bronco was going. He was leaving the country. He had $9,000 of cash in there, and he talked about killing himself because, innocent people do that.
Right. And I'm a little harder on the prosecution than you've been, because they just botched from the beginning. They botched so much of that case, and sadly they seem to be underwater from the beginning.
People can't relate. Maybe you can, because you spent some time in Birmingham, but people can't relate how in L.A. in 1991, all the way up through that trial, the aftermath of the Rodney King was so negative and such a, like, I remember getting in an elevator and going, is this it? We're throwing down? Like, you just had no idea how racist, and the majority of the women on that jury were black women. And for some reason, Marsha Clark thought, she even got a perm, she thought she was in it with the lady. Like, they totally got her. But in reality, they hated her because she was a woman who was perceived as the B word and very rough. And so those boys, those gentlemen, OJ included, got to play, oh, I'm the victim. They're trying to railroad me like they did Rodney King. I mean, it really did have a psychological impact, and it's probably felt to this day.
It worked. No, it was almost the beginning of wokeism, if you think about it, in that OJ Simpson allowed his Dream Team, and the Dream Team used a racial divide that was largely healing in America. They redivided the country on racial lines, and they used the sins of our country's past as excuse making to get OJ off. They really did.
They did, and the police chief of LA at the time, he was a very, very strict Ramparts Division type of guy. If you've ever seen the movie Colors, trying to deal with the gang violence, all this kind of thing. So there really was a sense of it was the police against the people, especially in the inner cities where I lived. South Central LA is where my college is. And so I literally got to see how, especially after Rodney King, the police were the enemy. So this is the pre-defund the police movement. This is the post-Vietnam War, we don't like the military, now we don't like the police after 9/11 thing. And then they played that up right there by saying, oh, we ran out of physical evidence to prove he's innocent because he's not. Let's now make it the police planted it. They planted that glove.
I remember.
They planted all this evidence.
DNA evidence, all of these things. They planted it. I remember. They took the blood out of the evidence room, and it had chemical. Yeah, I remember it like it was yesterday. Real quick before we go, Todd writes in and says, "Hey Matt, did you ever apologize to Steve for being wrong about the census?" Well,
can I clarify one thing about that?
Yeah, sure.
You can apologize if you want to, but there were two census conversations in one. So
right. We were
live
talking about two
show,
different
it's very
things.
confusing.
Yeah.
Right. One is trying to get a little town that's growing really fast, top 10 in the country, some money to build things like an ice rink. The other one was in 2030, the illegals are going to be counted as heads, and we're going to lose a bunch of representatives in D.C. and dilute guys like Mark Green who try to get the job done. So you don't have to apologize, but if you want, go ahead, I'll accept it.
Well, and you too. You
I'm sorry I confused the two issues.
I'm sorry I did too. Brahma,
but
you know I love you.
I got you content by sending you Haggett.
That's right. It was good. No, the mayor was really good. So, Steve, thank you. Heartlandjournal.com. For those interested, go there, watch, enjoy the podcast. It's great. Thank you, Steve.
See you soon.
All right, take care. There's Steve Abramowitz. All right, it's 1:53, Super Talk 99.7 WTN, a packed last hour of the show on this Thursday. We have Friday Mac Attack on Thursday, and Gino Bulso at 2:35 to talk about his opposition to a bill that would ban first cousins from marrying in the state of Tennessee. That's up in the last hour. USS stands for United Structural Systems, and I want to talk to you about everything that they provide. When it comes to large home repairs, a lot of times homeowners, they don't see what they don't see, and sometimes you pretend you don't see the warning signs because you're afraid of the price tag. Well, if you are afraid now, wait until the water does its damage. Wait until the foundation finally settles in a way that truly causes some major structural damage to your home. In fact, no, don't wait. Call USS. They are problem solvers that offer peace of mind first and foremost. Over 25,000 customers have been satisfied with the work that they've been doing since 1994. USS comes to your home and they diagnose and offer you solutions to your issue, whether it's foundation-based, waterproofing based, or if you're in need of concrete leveling. They do it all, and they've been keeping homes stable and dry since 1994. Serving Middle Tennessee and Southern Kentucky, give them a call today. You'll be happy you did. It's 615-488-7855, 488-7855, USSTN.com. Tell them Matt Murphy sent you to United Structural Systems, USS.
2 o'clock, I'm Mac Maury with your top story. 60 degrees right now, and boy, it's a little ugly out there. A little windy, rainy right now. Expecting showers on and off throughout this afternoon into tonight. Got a chance of thunderstorms. Weather forecast headed your way in 2 minutes. Jason Nathanson with some of the reaction to today's news of the death of OJ Simpson.
Lawyer Gloria Allred represented the family of OJ Simpson's murdered ex-wife, Nicole Brown Simpson.
I don't mourn for OJ Simpson. I do mourn for Nicole Brown Simpson and her family.
She spoke to ABC 7 in New York. In a statement, David Cook, an attorney for the family of Ron Goldman, the waiter murdered alongside Nicole Brown Simpson, said OJ Simpson died without penance, and Cook is still fighting to collect on the $33 million civil judgment against Simpson. And Caitlyn Jenner, who was married to Kris Jenner, ex-wife of Simpson lawyer Robert Kardashian, posted online simply, "Good riddance."
Here in Nashville, families of the 6 victims killed in the Covenant school shooting have filed an ethics complaint against a state senator who has filed legislation blocking non-governmental entities from intervening in public records lawsuits. The families have intervened in the lawsuit to release the shooter's manifesto to the public. They say Chattanooga Republican State Senator Todd Gardenhire's legislation is self-serving. Channel 4 says a hearing on the records case scheduled to be on Tuesday. That is the latest news. Weather forecast next. I'm Mac Maury, WTN News.
Hour number 3 of the Matt Murphy Radio Show on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Hello, welcome in. Glad to have you with us. My final hour of the week. I know it's not yours, and I thank you for being a part of the day. The Drive with Brian Wilson coming up next. We've got lots to get into in the final hour. Obviously, we're cramming 2 days into one because I'm not here tomorrow, so We've got Friday Mac Attack coming up in just seconds. If you're watching on Super Talk TV, you already see Mac Maury's busy at work trying to figure out what we're going to draft today. No time like the present there, Maury. It's 2:05 in the afternoon, almost 2:06 in the afternoon. So a couple of things going on. One, there is some misinformation about what happened with the FISA bill yesterday. And I want to make sure that we understand the accurate information. And I'm not saying anybody on this radio station is providing misinformation. I certainly wouldn't say that. I know Dan had Andy Ogles on this morning. Dan also had Scott Desjardins getting, competing thoughts about what went down and why it went down. But I want to share with you some of my thoughts on what happened. This was not a vote against FISA. It was a vote to bring things to the floor. It's a little bit of a procedural vote. It's confusing, but I think that I can clear it up coming up in about 30 minutes or maybe 45 minutes, because in about 30 minutes from now, we're going to welcome Representative Gino Bulso to the show. Gino Bulso was a part of a one-man filibuster in an attempt to stop a bill on the floor of the House of Representatives in the Tennessee General Assembly that would make it illegal for two first cousins to marry. So you heard me correctly in what I said, that Gino Bulso was filibustering a ban on first cousins marrying in the state of Tennessee. He'll explain why coming up at 2:35 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Right now, normally this happens on Fridays, but today is my Friday. It's 2:07. It's time for Friday Mac Attack. On Thursday. And hello, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. It's that time of the week where Matt Murphy steps back from the microphone after introducing you to the one and only. We call him Cougar Chow. We do so even though he's now engaged to the lovely Hannah. He is the one and only. He takes the news hat off. He takes sometimes the sports hat off, although today might be a little bit different, and he provides us with our Friday Mac Attack. Hello, Mac Maury.
Hello. Coming to you.
Did you do that to yourself?
I didn't.
Because sometimes, anyway.
Coming to you a day
Hello.
early. Hello.
Yeah, hello.
I'm excited about this.
I am too.
This is a good draft.
It's going to be fun.
It's so good that I came up with it about 5 minutes ago.
Yeah,
That's how good this is.
I said something that I hope is not recorded. You were doing your news about, 8 minutes ago.
Yeah, it's true.
And I hit the talkback button. For those who are not familiar with how things work, when I'm off air, I can hit a button and I can talk directly to Bell K.
Yeah.
And that button is right beside my mic button. And I hit that button and I said, hey, when is the bleep bleep going to decide what we're drafting today? Is that too hard? Wendy says, forget the hat, take the shirt off. I think she's talking to you.
Wendy. Wow.
Hello.
Take me out to dinner first. Usually she's not so fond, so I'll take it.
I don't know.
Tides have turned.
Maybe she's talking to me.
Maybe she's talking to you. You're right. Maybe she's talking to Headless
Maybe
Bell.
she's talking to Headless Bell. I don't know. Hello, Bell. How are you?
Hello.
Yeah.
Okay.
You doing all right?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's good. It's good.
Bell's not very impressed with this week's draft.
Oh,
there's
a lot of things going on right now that I'm not impressed with.
Okay, I think Bell feels like we're doing two sports-related drafts in a row.
Oh, I got my picks ready to go, baby. All three of them.
All right, well, tell everybody what we're doing here. We draft every week on Friday Mac Attack, and what are we drafting this week?
Today, we will be drafting the most influential athletes of all time. These aren't necessarily the best, and I'm sure a lot of these will be. To be influential, you've got to probably be on the Mount Rushmore, or you're really good at what you did. But, yeah, the most influential athletes of all time. And thought it was pertinent because we had influential, however, maybe good or bad.
Yeah, pretty influential athlete.
Yes.
Even before everything that went down in the 1990s. Obviously, USC, Buffalo Bills, one of the greatest running backs of all time.
For sure.
And nobody will remember him for any of that, for obvious reasons. Okay, well, we got to get a draft order here, and we got to get to it. Let's go. Come on.
All right, here we go.
Ready? 3, 2, 1, go.
Wow, Bell K with the first pick. Okay,
right,
now,
you want to?
Yeah.
I'm going to go 1.
Yeah.
Okay.
Could you see it? Dang
I couldn't see it.
Okay, that was a good guess. Good guess.
All right, so the draft order is now Bell K drafts first, Matt Murphy drafts second, And McMurray, a.k.a. Cougar Child, drafts third, the most influential athletes of all time. And
The pick is in.
I think the pick is in.
Pick is in.
I think, ladies and gentlemen, the pick is
The
in.
single greatest race car driver ever in the history of the sport, Ricky Bobby.
If you ain't first, you're last.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. I mean, that's fine. I mean, that's, if you don't want to take this very, very serious.
I'm taking it very, very seriously. You're the one who shows no appreciation for my picks.
This is a very serious
Is
segment.
it your pick? Is it your
No,
pick, sir?
I don't.
Is it your pick?
You do what you want to with your pick.
Whoa, two commissioners or two owners really getting at each other here.
Going after it. Okay.
His next pick's going to be Lightning McQueen. Just wait.
In the number 2 select. I mean, it seems a little bit obvious. I mean, there's a couple of places to go, but I'm just going to go ahead and take this one off the board. Cassius Clay, a.k.a. Muhammad Ali, would be my number 1 selection. Obviously, the greatest boxer of all time, and
really good.
and
Really good
incredibly influential in his. I mean, for better or worse. I mean, nobody's saying we agree with it or don't agree with it, but the fact that he refused to be drafted, he was stripped of his title as a result. Several years later, has to come back, defends that title. I mean, just an incredible all the way around.
Actually met him in LAX.
Did you know?
Wow.
Yeah.
And?
Very nice guy. I almost bumped into him because I was reading a magazine while I was walking. And the person that was helping him, because, he's well into having Parkinson's at that point, I looked up and I'm like, whoa, sorry, champ. And he was like, no problem, son.
Whoa.
Called him champ?
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Good. That's
good.
Awesome.
That's
good. That's good. He pulled the sorry, champ.
Sorry, champ. He's like, wow.
His response was like, of course I am. I hear that all the time.
I mean, I'm sure he does.
I will. Okay, so third pick here in the first round.
Yeah.
That would have been, by the way, great pick.
Thank you.
Close second to Ricky Bobby. But no, that would have been my number.
Just let Bell go first every
exactly.
Every week.
We can just
rotate.
I'm going to take, I think goes hand in hand with what we're doing today, right? And hopefully he's there on Sunday in a red polo. Give me Tiger Woods.
Tiger Woods. I thought I could have slipped Tiger to the third round.
Yeah, no.
Or second round at least. But yeah, Tiger Woods. I mean, obviously he changed golf.
He did.
In a way that only probably a handful of players have changed golf.
Exactly.
I think if you're talking golf, and one of these might be a future pick for me, you're talking Tiger, Jack Nicklaus, and Bobby Jones.
Yep.
Those are the 3 people that you're talking about as the most influential golfers of all time. Excellent selection. Bell, your pick number 2, sir.
I'm going to kind of stay on the golf theme, although it did. Shut up.
Sorry.
It is a little bit of
Nobody said anything.
a little bit of a fusion, actually. It's hockey and golf. It's
Here we
Happy
go.
Gilmore. Happy Gilmore is my number 2 pick.
Happy Gilmore. He really did change the game of golf.
Just an
He was
extra
just
movie.
striping.
Price is wrong, bitch.
Easy. Whoa. Do I need to spell your name for all the mamas out there that are about to call Dan Mandis?
Exactly.
Leave nasty.
MACMORE.
Hey.
How do you spell cougar? COCOU.
That was great.
That is good. Let's not overthink things, and let's just go ahead and say Michael Jordan. I mean, I don't think we don't need to overthink Michael Jordan. I could have gone Wilt if I wanted to go old school.
Yep.
I think Wilt literally changed rules of the game during his time. So I could have gone that, but I mean, I'm not overthinking something. Michael Jordan. That's my number 2 pick.
It's wonderful. Yeah, Magic Johnson could be in there too in the NBA.
Sure.
Yeah, it changed the game. Kareem. I mean, NBA has a lot of those. I think that was a fantastic pick. Another one that I maybe was just about to go with. I'll go, just changing my draft here. I will go. This is a tough one, but I think this is the right pick. I'm sure we'll get a lot of super textures scoffing with foot fairy comments and things of that nature. This is the largest sport in the world, the most popular sport in the world.
Yes!
And now it has come over to the U.S.
Like a fire hose.
Give me Lionel Messi.
Sure. You can have him.
Absolutely.
Congratulations. Good for you. That's great.
Socialism is pretty popular in the rest of the world, too.
Love
That
that.
doesn't mean it's a good idea.
I absolutely love it. I'm
Lionel
drinking
Messi.
it. No, I'm drinking it like honey. Messy. That's a great night. I mean, if you want to go a communist sport route, sure.
Should be embarrassed.
You know why?
You're a golf fan. What do you mean? LIV, buddy.
Golf. That's elitist, baby. That's free market.
That's it.
So, Belle, your number 3 pick for what it's worth. Which movie are we going with this time?
Yeah, exactly.
Hey, shut up. The only person that Muhammad Ali was ever afraid of getting into the ring with, Rocky Balboa.
I was hoping you would go Thunder Lips.
Hey, it's my pick.
Remember Thunder Lips?
Yeah, of course.
Hulk Hogan.
My pick.
Your 3 picks are
Ricky Bobby, Happy Gilmore, and Rocky Balboa.
Okay, so you make this easy for me. Babe Ruth is the selection. So I feel pretty good about my picks. We'll diagnose the draft and talk about undrafted free agents after you pick.
Yeah, because there are some good ones.
There's going to be some good ones. So, number 3 selection. Who was number 1 for you?
I was able to take.
I can't remember.
But you won.
Tiger. You got Tiger.
Tiger. Yeah, Tiger. Yeah.
Tiger, Messi. Number 3.
So I'm going to go basketball here, and I had 2 options. I could go more recent with Caitlin Clark, and I think, honestly, if we're just drafting based on what this is, influential, I think she may be number 1. I mean, bringing up a sport that is, talk about golf. People liked golf before Jack Nicholson. He made it more popular. People didn't like women's basketball, and now they do. It's the most viewed basketball game that ESPN's ever aired. Caitlin Clark did that. I don't think it's going to be my pick, though. I think my pick's going to be a guy who changed the game after it had already been changed probably
Jenner.
3 times.
He's going Caitlyn Jenner.
Maybe. You never know.
Stephen Curry.
Oh, I was wrong.
When you watch basketball today, you watch 10-year-olds play ball, and you go, hey, why are you shooting that? Well, it's because they watch Steph Curry. He changed the whole way basketball's played.
There's no question that I think he's influenced the game more than anyone since Jordan.
Yep.
Yeah, certainly.
Yep.
That's decent. I think the jury's just out on Caitlin Clark and how long that lasts.
That's fair. Yep.
I understand
Can this go to the WNBA?
Right.
Yeah.
And that's magnesium that is burning at a 2,000 degrees. But is that going to last?
And that's the responsibility of the WNBA.
Oh, there's no question.
You
take
make this
advantage
momentum.
of it. That's right.
Yes.
That's right. Some honorable mentions that we could have gone with. I said I had an undrafted free agent.
Oh, yeah. Who was this? You knew this guy was going to go undrafted.
Bob Gibson. All right, so Bob... And if you
guy
know,
that made the guitar?
If you know, you know. Gibson Guitars, that's exactly right. Incredible guy. He's also a ball player. Bob Gibson pitched for the Cardinals in the 1960s. Bob Gibson is single-handedly, y'all tell me if I'm not right here, single-handedly responsible for the lowering of the mound. Single-handedly responsible.
Wow.
Because he was, nobody could hit him. When the mound's higher, you get a better angle. That's why taller pitchers do better. So if the mound was higher in the 1960s, and so the pitchers got a better angle getting to the plate.
I was unaware of any of this. That's pretty interesting.
And
actually.
Bob and they would never say this. They would never admit it. But Bob Gibson, he had like a 1.5 ERA 2 or 3 years in a row.
Wow.
It was insane how good he was.
How tall was he?
He wasn't that tall of a pitcher. He was just
all the mound?
He was an incredibly intimidating guy that would brush his mama back on a pitch if she was standing at the plate.
Whoa.
That kind of guy. But Bob Gibson would have been an undrafted free agent for me. Also, Secretariat.
That's a good one.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's a great pick. Yeah, I like that.
Secretariat. Every year around Derby time, I go back and I watch. I guess it was wasn't the Derby. It gives me chills thinking about it. Obviously, it was Belmont. It was the last leg of the Triple Crown and the longest leg. It's the one that he won it by 40 lengths. Like, Secretariat was so good. When Secretariat crossed the finish line of this race, the second place horse was just rounding the turn.
Wow.
And he was so good. This is the one where the announcer says, Secretariat is like a giant machine. And they got mad at the guy because they thought the jockey was whipping. Because you whip the horse to get him to go faster.
Yeah.
But there's peril there because they could injure themselves. And they got mad at the jockey and they said, why were you whipping Secretariat when you were so far ahead? He goes, I didn't touch the horse from the moment we left the stable. He wanted to run. I just let him run.
Well, then why were they accusing him of whipping him?
Well, they thought that there's no way that you get that far ahead if you're not encouraging the horse. I don't know.
That's a great pick. I think Conor McGregor Another honorable mention.
Sure.
First megastar for the UFC.
Yeah.
They've blown up.
No question. Yeah, that's good. That's good. Bell, any other movie mentions for you?
Exactly. Yes.
Hey, you just respect the choices, mister.
Okay, it's you're the general manager of your team.
That's it. Yeah.
That's
You
right.
draft your team.
If you want to go 0 and
Captain
17
America,
every
the first
season.
Avenger.
That's exactly.
1800.
We're getting a lot of. See, Bell, this is what you cause. We're getting a lot
no.
of non-athletes.
Dang it.
All right, so Carl, here's some of the listener response from the Members Nutrition Super Text line. Carl Lewis, Jesse Owens, great. Two great ones.
Yeah.
Arnold Palmer
Good
brought
one.
golf to the masses and to the people. John Madden, that's an interesting one.
Wilma
like
Rudolph
that,
would have been
and I
a
actually-
good local pick.
What'd you say?
Wilma Rudolph would have been a good local pick.
Travis says Yogi Berra a better pick, more World Series rings, hits, and runs than anyone.
Well, it's not what we're doing.
No,
We're not doing stats.
Yeah, we're not doing.
We're not the
doing
greatest.
I mean, influential.
And I would like to
Influential.
thank 0388 for reminding everybody that I just smoked you guys last week.
But last week.
Last week?
What? Last week.
Yeah. Just took you apart.
You.
Baseball picks.
I mean, like 8 seconds ago, you were off topic.
What?
Can we talk about 8 seconds ago?
Come on. Last week.
Cannot.
Well, and let me tell you, your draft is going to play really, really well when we do best movie athletes of all
Best
time.
movie athletes of all time. We'll just run this one back for you.
I won't have to do any work.
Exactly.
That's a good one. Good draft.
Yeah, that was awesome.
For a Thursday, we did well. All right, there's McMorey. This is Matt Murphy. Gino Bulso coming up. You might want to roll tape on this from the news perspective. Gino Bulso, I don't know what we're doing, but Gino thinks that first cousin should be allowed to marry because his grandparents did. We'll talk about it next on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
FBI Director Christopher Wray looking for more funding for the FBI, and we've got some news regarding pitcher Shohei Ohtani. A verdict reached in that case. 2:30 Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Thank you much, Mac Morey. Super Talk 99.7 WTN. We know about the reaction by the Biden administration to the inflationary rates that we saw from yesterday. I've got some additional reaction from MSNBC. If I have a chance to get to it, we'll do that very soon on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Just got to switch over to my Twitter account. Yeah. I'll give you a break there, buddy. Joe needs he needs a break. He does. But I want to clear this up. And I'm not saying that I, fully subscribe to what Thomas Massey is telling folks, but I do think that it's important that we understand how this FISA deal works and how we are not done necessarily with FISA. And Massey wrote a lengthy thread on the X machine last evening, and I'm going to share some of that with you because it makes sense to me. It makes sense in as much as last night there was a vote on a resolution that would have allowed FISA as well as 6 amendments to it, including a warrant requirement amendment and 3 other pieces of legislation to come to the floor. According to Massey, on partisan procedural votes like this, Democrats reflexively vote no. Republicans typically vote yes. 19 Republicans voted with all of the Democrats to stop everything from coming to the floor today, including the warrant amendment to FISA. That includes Andy Ogles, by the way. Many of us who are adamantly opposed to warrantless surveillance, and Thomas Massey he's strong on this deal. Many of us who are adamantly opposed to warrantless surveillance voted for the resolution, wanting to get a recorded vote on warrants and recognizing the Speaker can otherwise suspend the rules and bring anything to the floor without a resolution like he did with Omnibus. Tactically, whether the 19 did the best thing or not is to be determined. They may have just stopped our only chance to have a vote on whether the government needs a warrant to spy on you. That vote might not have passed, but everyone would have had to go on record for the world to see. So what we had was a difference of tactics, with members like Jim Jordan, Marjorie Taylor Greene, Warren Davidson, myself, and other defenders of the Constitution parting ways with those who saw an opportunity to temporarily throw a wrench in things by voting with Nancy Pelosi and Adam Schiff. He's talking about Andy Ogles, by the way. Now that the rules resolution for the bill plus amendments has failed, the swamp could, A, suspend the rules to pass a worse FISA bill, B, make concessions and improve the rules for the bill, C, say they don't need a new bill to keep FISA going, or B, let the Senate move first on FISA. That's Thomas Massey on why he felt like there needed to be a vote on the thing. I'm not saying I necessarily agree with him. What I'm saying is that there are some in the social media world, nobody on our radio station certainly, and I know Dan Mandis, if you want to go back and listen to some of the conversation that Dan had this morning with Representative Andy Ogles, who voted with the 19 to stop it coming to the floor, or you can listen to Scott Desjardins, who was on with Andy this morning, or rather on with Dan this morning, talking about why he voted to continue the resolution. So a vote in favor of this by people like Desjardins is not necessarily a vote in favor of FISA. And that's what the point that I wanted to make to you. Just because, for example, Desjardins voted to move this forward does not mean that he supports FISA. It means not necessarily. It means that he supports getting it to the floor to get an up or down vote on it. The feeling is that FISA would pass if it got to the floor, but that's up to the body. And as noted by Representative Thomas Massey, that we were not voting up or down on FISA on that legislation. I know that it can get confusing. I just wanted to try to clean that up for you. So don't necessarily, destroy those. And I'm not here to defend Desjardins. You guys know that. But it's not necessarily a deal breaker if your lawmaker voted in favor of moving this to the floor, because there was still an opportunity to debate it, make it better, or eliminate it altogether. It is 2:30 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Time for news. Gino Bulso coming up in the next segment. We'll talk to him about his filibuster against a ban on first cousins being able to marry in the state of Tennessee. That's next.
.230, I'm Mac Morey with your top stories. 57 degrees, got some light rain here on Music Row. A little bit windy as well. We'll have showers on and off, possible thunderstorms here this evening. Weather forecast on the way in 2 minutes. FBI Director Christopher Wray on Capitol Hill today looking to increase funding to the FBI. Wray outlining threats the country's facing, including fentanyl, China, and terrorist groups in the Middle East. He says he needs more tools, people, and money. Perry Russum in Washington.
FBI Director Christopher Wray says the threat from foreign terrorists has risen to a whole new level after the attack on Israel on October 7th. Wray saying this about the FBI's $500 million budget decrease.
Candidly, this could not have come at a worse time.
Wray says cuts to the FBI also affect local and state police. He is also pushing to renew FISA, a national security surveillance program, as it currently stands. He calls FISA an indispensable tool.
The former interpreter for Los Angeles Dodgers star Shohei Ohtani was now been charged with allegedly stealing from Ohtani. Ohtani, currently the highest paid athlete in Northern American sports history. Alex Stone reports from L.A.
The scope of the alleged theft from baseball superstar Shohei Ohtani is far greater than had been known. Prosecutors now alleging interpreter Ipe Mitsuhara had for years been stealing money out of Ohtani's bank accounts without Ohtani having any idea. U.S. Attorney Martina Estrada.
Mr. Mitsuhara stole over $16 million.
Mitsuhara is charged with bank fraud, which could come with a 30-year prison sentence.
And that's the latest news. Weather's next. I'm Mac Morey, WTN News.
The Dr. Gill Center for Back, Neck, and Chronic Pain Relief is here for you. They want to help you. Do you experience pain? Where do you experience that pain? Is it in your back and your spinal column? If so, you need to contact the Dr. Gill Center. But even more than that, wherever you hurt, whether it's your hips, your knees, your elbows, your neck, wherever things move or even on soft tissue, they can assist you at the Dr. Gill Center, alleviate pain without having to pop pills and without having to consider needles or surgery. It's what they've always said. Don't take a pill, call Dr. Gill. Well, sure, it rhymes, but it means something as well. The Dr. Gill Center was created with a team approach impact to help the most people possible alleviate their pain and not consider the surgical opportunities down the road. That should always be a last option. So if you have pain, they have state-of-the-art industry equipment like their Class 5 laser system, the red light therapy, and spinal decompression, all there to pinpoint inflammation in your body, reduce pain, accelerate healing, and make you feel better longer. Let's make a call and make that initial appointment a priority. 615-882-4838. 615-882-4838. It's the Dr. Gill Center for Back, Neck, and Chronic Pain Relief in Franklin. Super Talk 99.7 WTN, Matt Murphy, and you. Thank you for being with us. 2:37. Always appreciate your time and consideration. The Drive coming up next with Brian Wilson. Lots to get into on this Thursday, and I'm certain that Brian will cover it all for you as we get you home. I'm out after today. I'm out tomorrow, and I appreciate you tuning in for Cameron Smith, who will join you from noon until 3 on the Matt Murphy Show on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. But plenty to do before we leave. So my phone began blowing up earlier today regarding a good friend of the show, Representative Gino Bulso, who's on the line with us, and a filibuster that he was engaged in. It was kind of a one-man filibuster, and I don't need to describe it. I'll let him describe it because he was a part of it. Representative Bulso joins us on the show to talk about a variety of things, to include what went down today. Gino, always good to catch up with you. I hope you're well, sir.
I am, Matt. Thank you for having me. Hope you're having a good afternoon.
I hope you are, too. Listen, you are a man that I have great appreciation for. In the few times that we've met one another and gotten to know one another, I know that you're a man of conviction. You believe what you believe. You explain it to people simply and succinctly, and you allow folks to believe as they may or let the chips fall where they may as a result. But you're just getting it on social media today because of something that went down in the General Assembly regarding this legislation that would ban certain aspects of marriage in the state of Tennessee. Just walk us through the legislation and your what is being described as a one-man filibuster of it for a minute.
Sure, Matt, happy to. And first of all, I don't pay attention to social media, so that's nothing I'm terribly concerned with, frankly.
Good for
I'm
you.
busy doing other things.
Yeah, I got you.
But we had a bill before us today that sought to ban first cousin marriages in Tennessee. And as I analyzed it, it struck me that it did not comply with the Obergefell versus Hodges decision from 2015. And as you know, as a legislator, my first obligation is to look at the Constitution with regard to any bill and say, is this something that we can enact constitutionally? And as it turned out, this particular bill is unconstitutional. Why is that? Well, because, when we talk about first cousin marriage, historically, we always think about a female and a male and having offspring. But since the days that Obergefell was decided back on June 26 of 2015, same-sex marriage is now the law in Tennessee as it is in all 50 states. And for reasons that I explained to some extent on the floor this morning, I very much disagree with the Obergefell decision. I think that the dissents that Scalia, Thomas, Roberts, and Alito filed in that case were right on point. But the fact is that in our constitutional republic, we have to be bound by the Supreme Court decisions with which we disagree as much as those with which we agree. So right now we're in an environment where same-sex marriage is the law of the land. Obergefell is the law of the land. And so the question becomes, in Tennessee, should a male be able, if he wants, to marry another male who happens to be his first cousin? And the way the constitutional framework works, the answer to that question is yes, unless somehow the state can demonstrate what's called a compelling interest and can fashion a law that is narrowly tailored to protect that compelling interest. The problem that we had this morning is that when I challenged my Democratic colleagues in particular to explain why Tennessee has a compelling state interest in not allowing a male to marry his first cousin if he wanted to, they were unable to do it. And that really just underscores the fact that there is no compelling state interest that would preclude a male first cousin from marrying another male first cousin or a female first cousin from marrying another female first cousin. And in the absence of a compelling interest, Obergefell simply does not allow the law to be passed that we unfortunately passed earlier this morning.
Well, I mean, I have an appreciation for that, but it seems to be on your part a very narrowly tailored argument that has broader consequences as a result. And I understand the legislation passed, but I mean, you understand. I mean, look, I'm a libertarian. So I don't want government involvement in anything that government does not absolutely have to be involved in. And so I'm willing to even listen to compelling testimony regarding health-related consequences based on offspring of. I mean, I'm willing to listen to all of that. I don't dismiss this just automatically because we're talking about first cousins marrying and whatever.
Right.
But do you believe that there is a compelling interest on the part of the state to prevent heterosexual couples who happen to be first cousins from marrying?
Yes.
Okay, very good. But your concern is that this legislation could be used, if the Obergefell could be used as a challenge to this legislation should it become law?
And my point's a little more simple than that. My point is that under Obergefell, if a man wants to marry his first cousin who's also a man, under Obergefell, that marriage can only be annulled or disallowed by the state if there's a compelling state interest.
Right.
And the only compelling state interest, of course, is that there's an increased risk of genetic anomalies or birth defects with the marriage of first cousins. You don't have that issue in a same-sex marriage. And so, in the absence of a compelling state interest, which is, part of what's called this strict scrutiny test that's applied when a state government or a federal government is passing a law that affects a fundamental right like marriage, in the absence of that compelling state interest, the state simply cannot act. And that's the question. I mean, are you able, Matt, for example, to articulate a compelling reason why in Tennessee or in any state a man should not be able to marry his first cousin who's also a man if the two want to do it?
No.
Okay.
I mean,
well,
you
would have been voting with me. It would have been me, you, and Monty Fred.
well. The question then becomes: are you able to split the baby? Meaning, can you split the factors that would differentiate same-sex marriage? I know I don't think this is necessarily your interest in making the argument. I don't want to put words or thoughts in your head or words in your mouth, but did it occur to you that perhaps this necessitated splitting the two types of marriage, same-sex and traditional or heterosexual marriage?
Well, yes, and that's one of the points of the amendment because, see, part of the problem with the Obergefell decision, and one of the reasons I'm going to be working hard next year to craft legislation to challenge it directly, is that it held that same-sex marriage was the same as heterosexual marriage. And when you get into an issue like this involving first cousins, it puts the lie to it because you can see that the two are very different. Heterosexual marriage is something that's productive, that's fruitful. The same cannot be said of same-sex marriage, which is why I think all the Democrats in the House were running for the hills this morning when I was making the argument, because this very issue about first cousin marriage highlights that there are fundamental differences between heterosexual marriage and same-sex marriage. And those types of distinctions are things that we have recognized in our laws since we were a country, and obviously that mankind has acted upon going back thousands and thousands of years. So, part of what we were doing this morning was just highlighting the point that you're making, that yes, this is something that does need to be split because same-sex marriage is not constitutionally, biologically, or otherwise the same as heterosexual marriage.
The issue is also, and I think we became aware of this because you've talked about it publicly. I mean, the issue is also, to a certain degree, personal for you, correct?
Not at all. No, obviously I mentioned in the committee meeting on April the 2nd that it was odd that, here I am sitting in a legislature where someone is trying to pass a bill to outlaw something that my grandparents used 100 years ago, literally 100 years ago, when they became married. So, I mean, I went ahead and shared that information in the committee, but it's got nothing to do with the constitutional issue.
I understand that, but just for those that don't know, your grandparents were first cousins, right?
On my mother's side.
On your mother's side. And you don't feel like this pulls you in any particular direction to perhaps argue that in the past there would have been consequences had this been the law in the past?
Well, no, Matt, because recall that in the committee meeting I voted in favor of the legislation.
Sure.
Because this has not been something that's been a legislative focus of mine at all. But subsequent to the meeting, as I began to analyze the issue in preparation for the floor vote today, in particular going back and rereading Obergefell, it became clear to me that this bill regarding first cousin marriage could not be constitutionally applied to same-sex couples because there is no threat of any type of a birth defect or genetic anomaly, because obviously a man and a man cannot conceive a child, nor can a female and a female.
So there are some legislators that have reached out to me, Gino, and suggested that the reason that they voted in favor of the legislation to ban first cousins from being able to marry in the state of Tennessee was specifically to challenge Obergefell and get it overturned. How do you respond?
I'm not surprised. I mean, obviously some legislators take different approaches to things. And sometimes there are occasions where you do want to craft and pass legislation to challenge a particular case. In this case, this particular bill was not prepared as a challenge to Obergefell. I think a proper challenge to Obergefell would look very different from this. But if there are some legislators in our caucus who voted in favor of this to challenge Obergefell, it would not surprise me in the least. That would be a rational thing to do.
Well, I'll tell you what you won't get, Gino. You won't get an argument out of me that you're highlighting the obvious differences between same-sex marriage and heterosexual or more traditional marriage, as we call it. And we've always recognized, or at least I have, those differences. And for the state to suggest that there are not inherent differences, I think you are clearly demonstrating that there are, first. Secondly, the only compelling interest that the state has regarding marriage, I've always argued, is between a man, a woman, and their spiritual creator. And in this case, I mean, if you want, to say a man and a man, that's fine. But the only interest the state has is in the interest of public health. And that's, for me, the only reason why you would have these laws on the books to begin with. I think it's the jokesters can make the jokes, but I think it's a very compelling constitutional argument that you're making, Gina.
Well, thank you, Matt. I'm glad you appreciate it, because obviously I knew when I was making the argument that I was going to be alone. I mean, I was surprised and gratified that my good friend Monty Fritz went ahead and voted with me, but I was prepared to be alone, because sometimes you have to take out a stand, and this is not sort of a hill that I ever want to die on, because this is not something that's really within my legislative wheelhouse. But there's no way I'm going to stand on the floor of the House and cast a vote that I think is unconstitutional. And as the law stands right now, this bill is unconstitutional because it blatantly violates Obergefell. And so I voted the way I did, knowing that obviously it was going to be subject to ridicule. But sometimes that's just what you do. John Adams, our second president, he was a lawyer, and he caught a lot of flack, of course, because he was the one who defended the 5 British soldiers who were involved in the Boston Massacre, back in 1775. So sometimes, especially when you've got a legal background and you're focused on protecting individual rights, and you're focused on protecting our constitutional republic, and you're focused on protecting Supreme Court precedent, you got to take one for the team. And that's something about, I think, what happened today.
Representative, thank you for coming on with us on such short notice and explaining your position, and we'll talk again very soon. Take care, Gina.
Okay. Thank you, Matt.
All right. There's Gino Bulso explaining his position. Look, it kind of reminds me of one of my favorite films is Cool Hand Luke. And the captain in Cool Hand Luke says, that's the way you wants it, that's the way you gets it. And apparently Gino's utilizing the Obergefell decision, which he disagrees with, and says, hey, if this is the way you want it, this is the way you get it. It's 2:51. We'll check in with Brian Wilson next on Super Talk. Friends, Tennessee Men's Clinic has 2 locations to serve you. Let's talk about Tennessee Men's Clinic and what they provide. Evan Bass, since 2014, he started his clinic in Midtown Nashville for one reason, and that is to provide men-centric health for men-centric problems. Men-centric issues, I should say. If you're feeling low energy, no motivation, no drive. If you don't feel the passion in the bedroom that you once felt, there is a solution for you. And it starts with a visit to Tennessee Men's Clinic. Now they've opened up a second location. That location's in Cool Springs / Franklin, available for all of you south of my voice here in Nashville. Whatever the reason, if it's low energy, a lack of motivation in the gym, maybe you've lost a little vitality in the bedroom. Guys, no shame in that game. Half the men in America are going to experience it at one time or another. It's time to get that problem solved with the Tennessee Men's Clinic. TennesseeMen'sClinic.com for more information. That's TennesseeMen'sClinic.com. Go and get tested today. It does not cost an arm and a leg. You'll be satisfied with the customer service. Their urologist will help you out. It works. 615-208-9090. 208-9090 for our friends at Tennessee Men's Clinic. You're wasting time with that trash while we've got to get to Brian Wilson. Come on, man. Come on. Hey, not a lot of time left, running late. Just enough time to check in with Brian Wilson of The Drive to find out what is going on. Mr. Wilson, what's happening this afternoon?
Well, we've got a story that I think is one of the best stories that I've seen in a long time that explains how the Democrats use the levers of government to organize their boots-on-the-ground efforts in an election season. And it really is unfair. We often hear people say elections are rigged and the Democrats cheat. Well, let me just tell you how they are using the levers of government to get people out to vote. But it's unfortunately, they say it's going to be, it's a neutral effort, they say, but it's really not. It's an effort to organize Democrats so they go to the polls.
Love it. Absolutely love it. I cannot wait to hear it. I'll be listening all afternoon as I'm driving. Not here tomorrow, so I'll miss you, Brian, but looking forward to The Drive this afternoon from 3 until 7 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Mac Moore's coming up next with a few headlines for you, and then it is the aforementioned Drive. Have a great weekend, folks. I'm out tomorrow. Cameron Smith in for me, and I'll be back on Monday, bright and early at high noon. Until then, have a wonderful time, folks. Hug your loved ones. So long, everybody.